So how did Pedro Pascal go from Refugee to Hollywood's most beloved leading man? And why do people say he's one of the realest stars in the industry? Because for Pedro Pascal, kindness isn't just a choice. It's the only way he knows how to live. Pedro Pascal was basically born into danger. He was born on April 2nd, 1975 in Santiago, Chile, right in the middle of one of the country's darkest times. His parents, Veronica Pascal and Jose Balmaceda, weren't just ordinary citizens. They were rebels. Not the movie kind, the real ones. They stood against Augusto Pinochet's brutal dictatorship. And in Chile, that wasn't something you could do without serious consequences. So what happened? They had to run. Pedro was just 9 months old when his parents ran to the Venezuelan embassy. They were desperate for asylum. Imagine that, a baby caught in the middle of political chaos. It wasn't just a quick escape either. They hid for months, and finally, they got permission to leave Chile for good. First stop, Denmark. But that wasn't home. Soon they moved again, this time to the United States. And just like that, Pedro Pascal's life as a refugee began before he could even walk. But did he ever forget his roots? Not a chance. Even though he grew up far from Chile, his parents made sure he knew where he came from. They filled their home with stories, traditions, and memories of their past. He had an older sister, Javiera, and 2 younger siblings, Nicolas and Lux. Lux later became an actress and a transgender activist. So how did all of this shape Pedro? It made him adaptable. It made him tough. And maybe it gave him the depth that makes his performances feel so raw and real. Ever wondered how a refugee kid from Chile becomes a Hollywood A-list star? Pedro Pascal's journey is nothing short of remarkable. After fleeing Chile, his family found a new home in San Antonio, Texas. Growing up in San Antonio, Pedro was immersed in a blend of cultures. He was a competitive swimmer during his early years. But life took another turn when he was 11. The family packed up and moved to Orange County, California. Why the move? Seeking better opportunities and a fresh start. In California, Pedro discovered a new passion. He traded swimming pools for theater stages. Attending the Orange County School of the Arts, he honed his acting skills. But was that enough for him? Not quite. He set his sights on New York City. Enrolling at NYU Tisch School of the Arts, Pedro immersed himself in the craft of acting. He graduated in 1997, ready to take on the acting world. Pedro became the strong person we admire today because of his experiences. These include cultural changes and personal losses, because they fueled his passion and determination, and perhaps they gave him the depth and authenticity that shine through in every role that he plays. Who knew that a boy from Santiago would become one of Hollywood's most beloved actors? Life has a funny way of unfolding, doesn't it? So Pedro had a dream, but having a dream and making it a reality, that's a whole different story. He knew he wanted to act. He knew he wanted to be part of the world that gave him so much comfort as a kid. But where do you even start when you have no Hollywood connections and no roadmap? Well, for Pedro, it first started with training. He got into the Orange County School of the Arts, a place that allowed him to fully dive deep into his acting, and from there he took it a step further at NYU in New York. Now, it sounds impressive, it was, but it wasn't enough to just study acting. Pedro had to live through the brutal reality of trying to make it, and let me tell you, it was rough. You know those actors who make it big right away? Yeah, Pedro was not one of them. For years, he dealt with what every struggling actor experiences. Countless auditions, frequent rejection, and minor roles that hardly pay the bills. He got small parts in shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Touched by an Angel, and NYPD Blue. Ever heard of those?
Exactly.
These weren't major roles that were going to make him famous. They were just stepping stones. and stepping stones don't always pay the rent. So, like most struggling actors, Pedro had to hustle. He worked bartending jobs in New York. He needed money and wanted to chase a dream that sometimes feels impossible. Years passed, more auditions, more rejections, more moments where he questioned if this was really gonna work out. And honestly, most people would have given up, with good reason to do so. But Pedro, he kept going, and soon everything was about to change. You ever feel like life just keeps knocking you down no matter how hard you try? Yeah, that was Pedro Pascal's reality for years. He struggled with auditions and rejection. He also fought to survive in the acting world. But what most people don't realize, his struggles weren't just professional, they were deeply personal too. And it all started with a loss that completely shattered him. In 1999, Pedro's mother, Veronica, passed away. Now, if you've ever lost someone that was close to you, you know it changes you. It messes with your mind in ways you can't even explain. Pedro wasn't just grieving, he was lost. He faced constant rejection in his career, and now the one person who believed in him was gone. And, like anyone, it broke him. So much so that he decided to change his last name from Balmaceda to Pascal, his mother's maiden name. It was his way of keeping her close, of making sure she was still part of his journey. But even with that, the grief didn't just go away. It sat with him. It was with him through each failed audition, each sleepless night, and each moment of doubt. And on top of that, there was something else Pedro had been struggling with for years. Anxiety. And not just the nervous before a big moment kind, we're talking about full-blown crippling anxiety. The kind that makes you question everything. It keeps you up at night. You wonder if you're good enough and if you'll ever make it. Pedro has openly talked about this, how anxiety has been a constant companion in his life. It's wild, right? We see him now, this confident, charming guy who seems like he has it all together, but behind the scenes, he's been battling with his own mind every single day. And when you mix anxiety with years of rejection and self-doubt, it's a dangerous combination. There were times he wanted to quit, times he thought maybe he'd made a mistake chasing his dreams, but somehow he kept going. Maybe it was his stubbornness, maybe it was his need to prove to himself and to his mother that he could do this, but whatever it was, Pedro did not stop. And even though the road ahead was still tough, he was about to hit a turning point, a moment that would take him from struggling actor to someone the world couldn't ignore and couldn't help but love. Even after doing everything, he was stuck for years. This guy didn't just struggle. Pedro barely survived. After graduating from NYU Tisch School of the Arts, he hoped everything would finally fall into place. I mean, that's one of the best acting schools out there, right? But instead, reality hit him like a truck. Audition after audition, rejection after rejection. And we're not talking about small rejections here. We're talking about brutal, soul-crushing ones. The kind that make you question if you're even meant for this. At one point, Pedro was so desperate for work that he was auditioning for everything. TV shows, commercials, theater, anything that would pay the bills. But Hollywood, like for most people, wasn't giving him a break. And here's the thing, Pedro wasn't just getting rejected, he was almost making it. He'd get callbacks. He'd get down to the final 2 actors for a role. He'd hear things like, "You're great, but we're gonna move in a different direction." That's the worst kind of rejection, right? It's like being told, "You're good, you're commendable, but just not enough." And man, that messes with your head every time. At one point, he even packed his bags and moved to LA, thinking maybe a change of scenery would help. But guess what? It didn't. LA, like for most people, was even worse. No money, no stability, just an endless cycle of auditions and side jobs to survive. And after nearly 2 decades of fighting for a break, he finally got one. It wasn't a massive role, it wasn't a lead in some blockbuster movie, but it was enough. A single role that would change everything. You know that moment when everything just clicks? When all the struggles, all the doubts, the endless auditions, the endless frustrations, the endless turmoil finally pays off. For Pedro Pascal, that moment arrived with a character who, though brief on screen, made a lasting impact. Pedro Pascal steps into the world of Game of Thrones as Oberyn Martell. and let's be real, he stole every scene he was in. Oberyn wasn't just another character, he was magnetic, charming, deadly, unapologetically bold. And Pedro played him perfectly. Fans and critics went crazy over his performance. And just like that, Hollywood took notice. But here's the problem. One breakout role doesn't mean instant A-list status. After Game of Thrones, Pedro landed a role in Kingsman: The Golden Circle, a cool gig with some crazy action. Then came Narcos. As DEA agent Javier Peña, Pedro delivered a powerful, gripping performance. The show was a masterpiece, yet despite all of this, Pedro was still on the sidelines. Respected, yes. Superstar, not yet. Then came a galaxy far, far away. Disney Plus drops The Mandalorian. Pedro Pascal is cast as Din Djarin, a lone bounty hunter navigating the Star Wars universe. Sounds cool, right? Except there was one tiny issue. His face. Barely seen. For most of the show, he's under a helmet. No facial expressions, no eye contact. Just his voice, his body language. Somehow, he made Din one of the most beloved Star Wars characters ever. Critics raved, it's difficult to generate empathy for a faceless blank slate of a character, but Pedro Pascal manages to do it. And fans, they couldn't get enough. Mandalorian memes flooded the internet. Pedro was everywhere, but he wasn't done. In 2023, Pedro took on Joel Miller in HBO's The Last of Us. A broken man, a survivor, a father who has lost everything. The role was intense, and Pedro, he delivered. His performance was raw, heartbreaking, and real, and critics called it a career-defining moment. Troy Baker wrote, Pascal's take is subtle and yet commanding, resulting in a version of Joel that actually feels even more dangerous. And just like that, he became Hollywood's go-to leading man. From Oberyn to Din to Joel, Pedro has mastered one thing, balancing toughness and bravado with vulnerability. That's what makes Pedro great. And now, he's finally getting the recognition he's always deserved. Ever felt like you didn't belong, even when you clearly did? Pedro Pascal, despite his rising fame, often grappled with self-doubt and imposter syndrome. In his early career, he faced numerous rejections and setbacks. These experiences planted seeds of uncertainty about his place in the acting world. But how did he cope? Pedro leaned heavily on a strong support system. Friends like Sarah Paulson stood by him during tough times. She even shared her earnings to ensure he could eat. Can you imagine having such a friend? Managing anxiety became another challenge. Pedro turned to therapy and mindfulness practices. He also found solace in the support of his co-stars. Working with Vanessa Kirby, for instance, they shared an understanding that erased on-set nerves. Ever wondered how fame affects one's sense of self? Pedro often reflects on this. He emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries to maintain authenticity. He takes breaks from social media. Also, he spends time with his loved ones. These all help him stay grounded. Despite the spotlight, he strives to remain true to himself. Isn't it inspiring how he navigates these challenges? Pedro's journey reminds us that even those who seem confident face inner battles. Yet, with support and self-awareness, it is possible to overcome them. Ever wondered how someone becomes the internet's favorite? How does an actor transform into a global meme? Let's dive into Pedro Pascal's unexpected journey to online stardom. So, how did Pedro Pascal earn the title Internet's Daddy? It wasn't a calculated move. Fans began dubbing him this affectionate nickname, especially after his roles in The Mandalorian and The Last of Us. But why Daddy? It's a term of endearment, reflecting admiration and a sense of protective warmth. Pedro's view of father-like figures in these series struck a chord, giving rise to this fun nickname. In interviews, Pedro's reacted to this title with humor and humility. He also recognizes the creativity of the internet. But what makes someone a viral sensation? For Pedro, it's a blend of his natural humor, undeniable charm, and genuine humility. Have you seen his interviews? They're filled with candid moments, infectious laughter, and a down-to-earth demeanor. This authenticity makes him incredibly relatable. People are drawn to celebrities who are real, who don't put on a facade. Pedro's ability to laugh at himself and engage sincerely with others truly sets him apart as one of the greats. Remember that time Pedro couldn't contain his laughter during an interview, or when he danced mid-interview to fan chants? These spontaneous moments are gold mines for meme creators. The internet thrives on such genuine reactions. Fans clip these instances, adding captions, and before you know it, a meme is born. Pedro's laugh and heartfelt reactions have become popular memes. This made him a favorite on the internet. But why do people feel so connected to Pedro? It's his genuine interactions with his fans. Unlike many celebrities who maintain a distance, Pedro embraces his supporters. He's often seen taking time to chat, sign autographs, and even share personal stories. This approachability makes fans feel valued and seen. When a celebrity acknowledges their fans' importance, it fosters a deeper connection. But why do people feel so connected to Pedro in a way that they don't with other celebrities? It's simple. He's real. In an industry often criticized for its superficiality, Pedro's authenticity shines. He doesn't shy away from discussing vulnerabilities, past struggles, or personal growth. This openness invites fans into his world, making them feel like they're part of his journey. It's this relatability, combined with his talent, that has endeared him to millions. Ever thought about what it means to be a modern man? Is it about strength or perhaps vulnerability? Pedro Pascal beautifully blends both, redefining masculinity in today's world. Pedro challenges traditional norms of manhood. He shows that being strong doesn't mean hiding your emotions. In roles like the Mandalorian, he portrays tough characters, yes, but with deep emotional layers. This balance of strength and sensitivity offers a fresh perspective on masculinity. But did you know Pedro is a steadfast ally of the LGBTQ+ community? His sister, Lux Pascal, is actually transgender. Pedro's unwavering support for her is heartwarming. He proudly shared her journey, emphasizing love and acceptance. Beyond family, Pedro uses his platform to advocate for LGBTQ+ rights. He often shares messages promoting equality and condemning discrimination. This commitment showcases his dedication to allyship. But Pedro doesn't shy away from discussing mental health issues as well. He emphasizes the importance of seeking help and normalizing therapy. By sharing his experiences, he inspires others to prioritize their well-being as well. This openness helps break the stigma surrounding mental health issues. In an industry often focused on image, Pedro's authenticity stands out. His blend of vulnerability, advocacy, and true, genuine kindness sets a new standard, and people love it. Having more stars like Pedro would promote a culture of empathy and inclusivity. It would encourage open conversations about identity and mental health. Isn't that the kind of Hollywood we'd all love to see? Pedro Pascal's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. He started as a refugee child fleeing political chaos, and now he's one of Hollywood's favorite actors. His journey shows resilience, talent, and authenticity. He wasn't handed success, he fought for it. It all feels real because it is, but is he proof that Hollywood is evolving, or is he just the rare exception? What do you think? Is Pedro Pascal a sign that Hollywood is changing for the better, or will the industry eventually demand something else from him? Either way, one thing is certain. Pedro Pascal is a once-in-a-generation talent, and no matter what happens next, his story is one we won't forget.